Hey everybody, this is Randy, and this is going to be the first official tutorial with the new camera and setup and lighting, whatever. Still adjusting. As you see, the focus might need to turn autofocus off. I don't know. I'm still figuring all these things out, but let's get going. Like, let's get something up here and get you guys looking at something. I want to talk about MIDI drums, and I want to talk about the importance of making them as human as possible. This is a hard one. It's a hard one because anybody can pull up a Easy Drummer or some type of drum program and start putting in MIDI to create a drum beat. But it's a lot harder when you're not a drummer because you don't understand how a drummer thinks, if that makes sense. So now you have to guess how a drummer thinks. And to be honest, there's no real easy fix for that kind of situation. So I'm just going to show a few things, show you my thinking process. I'm a drummer. I've been playing drums for over 25 years, almost 30 years. Actually, we might be on 30 years. I'm not going to do the math, but at least 20. And so I'm really good at them. At least I'd like to think I'm decent at them. So I understand how a drummer thinks. I understand the physics of how a drummer hits the drums. And that can apply to how I apply to my velocities and my randomness of the timing and stuff like that. And so I think I'll show you a few simple drum beats and how we make those drum beats sound human. And then I'm going to show you how I'm going to write drums to this track that I'm currently writing. Yeah, the autofocus is focusing. It doesn't know if it needs to focus on my hands or my face. So we'll just have to deal with that for this video. But, so yeah. So we're going to dive in. I've got Pro Tools open. I'll show you the drum program I've been enjoying for at least heavy metal right now. It doesn't have to be this. Easy Drummer's got some good drum sets as well. But yeah, let's talk about drum samples. If you want your drums to sound as human as possible, you have to have good samples. You can't just get really crappy, cheap sounding samples. They've got to be drum sets that have a lot of samples in them to variate the type of hits that are being triggered. This is a hard one to explain. Basically, a drummer goes into the studio and records a bunch of hits on, like, let's say the snare drum. And then they take all those recordings of those hits at different velocities. And let's say they've got their lowest velocity hit. They don't have just one sample for that hit. They have multiple samples, like 10, 15 of that one velocity of that light hit, and then all the way up to the hardest hit. They have 10 to 15 different samples, and then as it's triggering at those velocities, it's randomizing those samples so that even that hit, even if it's at the same velocity, it still doesn't have the same sound. This is way more accurate to how real drums would sound, because no drummer out there can hit the snare drum perfectly the same exact sound every time. There's going to be variance between his velocity, how he struck the drum, and that's why they want all those samples. And that's what makes a sample pack really, really powerful, is by having the same velocities but multiple hits of the same velocity. And so yeah, you need to have a good sample pack that has a lot of velocities in it. And that's something that I don't think a lot of us research when we're buying. We just hear like a video of the drums, like from their promotional stuff, and we're like, that sounds amazing, I'm getting that. But you got to look deeper, you got to look and say, okay, well, how many samples are in this pack? How many gigs is the file? I will be using, it's in Contact, but it's from a company called RS Drums. And they have a drum set that they just recently released last year. It's called the Monarch. And this thing sounds freaking amazing. The only downfall is it is an 8 gig sample pack, which means they got a lot of samples, a lot of different hits for those drums. And what's bad about it is not that it has a lot of samples, but that it takes forever for the drum set to load up and then to get everything going. In Contact up here, you'll see there's 3 gigs already loaded in for the samples that I have loaded for this drum set. You know, not all 8 gigs are going to be loaded in because there's different snare drums, there's different toms that you can change out right here, right? Maybe not the toms. Yeah, not the toms, but we definitely have different snares, lots of different snares to choose from, which is great. And so, 3 different kicks. I think you got cymbals, different cymbals. But yeah, they've got the same amount of samples hits just for the cymbals too. So the cymbals don't sound like they're being hit exactly the same like a robot. It's a human hitting those drums, right? So yeah, it's a huge sample pack, but it sounds freaking great. I love it. And the cool thing is, here in the settings, over here in the Midi preset, you can change the mapping to match like Easy Drummer or Tune Track SD3, you know, P5. I think they even have, Drum Forge. So Addictive Drums. So if you're going to write drums in RS Drums and then later you want to send it to someone else who has that's going to change the drum sets, but they, you know, they only use Easy Drummer, you could switch the mapping to Easy Drummer or whatever, and that way the mapping sticks for the next person that's going to work on your drums for you, which is kind of cool. Or if let's say you're used to Easy Drummer's mapping, and you don't really want to have to relearn a new mapping with RS drums, you can go to Easy Drummer and pretty much it's all the buttons are all the same on your keyboard, where the kick is, where the snare is. I actually like RS drums mapping. I mean, it's obviously you get everything in this little, you know, from the kick to the snares. And the thing I love about RS drums, you have in the snare, you have a soft hit, or let me rephrase, a non-rim shot, and then a rim shot, and then a flam. So you don't actually have to create 2 snares and create the flam. They've got the flam sample in there for you, which is just awesome, because I hate fucking programming flams. And here, in the settings, you have flam time. So I can, let's say I want that a little bit more spaced. I can turn this up to like 700 milliseconds. Now they're more spaced out. And then let's say, I want it actually closer. Let's bring it down to like 250. So you just got to find that happy medium, which I think where it's normally set. Yeah, about 400 milliseconds. 435 milliseconds. Flap, flap. You know, and if anybody doesn't know what a flam is, that's the snare hits and then your other hand comes down with it, and it's a real quick, you know, and yeah, that's the best way I can explain a flam for you. But I will go into programming flams a little bit probably in this video, because not a lot of sample packs have that. RS Drums does, which I will be using it no matter what. But I will show you how to program some flams, just so that, you know, you have that in your bank, so when you have a drum set that doesn't have flams, you can still program flams. And just understanding the physics behind a flam hit and what makes a flam hit sound like a flam hit, you know. So yeah, I feel like we should just dive in. There's so much to explain. There's so much deep diving that you can do with programming drums. I guess I should talk about what I've got set up right now for this set, because I've got a preset that I've created called my Randy Starter Kit. And what this is actually set up to, if I go up here, I want to say it's this button, yeah. I can view my outputs. And then right here on my outputs, I actually have output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is so that I can send each microphone to different aux buses, and then I can print those aux buses later for mix down. I like mixing down my drum set as a drum set, not as a MIDI drum set or a stereo file. I like having individual controls. I can go back into the mix and adjust how loud the hi-hat is, or how loud a cymbal is, or whatnot. And so yeah, I have it all mapped out in Kontakt. And this was a bit of a process of how to do this too, so that would be a whole nother tutorial. But just know that you can do that with Kontakt, just like you can with EZDrummer or anything else. So I'm going to take those outputs out. I took away a couple of toms because I set the drums up how I actually play the drums, or how my drum set's set up in my studio, which is I only have 2 toms and a floor tom. Sometimes it's a tom and 2 floor toms. It just doesn't matter. I just went with the sounds. So I like, that sounds good, doom, 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 you know, like, it's a tonal thing, you know, you don't want to go doom, 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 you know, like, you don't want the variance of tone to be too variant, and I thought that was, like, the perfect dun, 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 you know, it's the best way I could explain it. When you're tuning drums live, that I do that. I kind of set the toms up to where the drummer can kind of play bum 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 bada bum bum bada bum 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 with his drum toms. You know, like make that tonal, you know, sound. And if you can't, if it sounds a little off, flat, sharp, we'll adjust the tom tuning until it sounds like dun 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 dun. And I got that actually from Benny Greb, so credit to Benny Greb on that one. I'm not going to take credit for that. It just ended up when you hit the 2 toms together in certain parts that they sound good together. Like they don't sound out of tune and wobbly. It's like sounds like chords as you're hitting the drums. And that's something, you know, that's a live drum thing to talk about, but it still applies to your MIDI drums too. You don't want your MIDI drum toms to be tuned way whacked. And then when you're doing flam hits with 2 different drums or something, that it sounds wonky. So like I said, there's so much deep diving to this, but I digress. So yeah, I kept all the cymbals because who knows, maybe I like using some of them, and I don't actually have that many cymbals on my drum set, but it's nice to have some options when it comes to the cymbals. Anyways, let's get into it a little bit. I'm gonna jump over to a area that doesn't have music, because this is a song that I've got loaded up. I've got my MIDI here, and I'm just gonna record. So, oops. So here we go. I've got RS drums here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit record, and it's going to create a clip for me with nothing on it, which is fine. So I'm in clip view. Take the record button off. Now I can zoom in, and I can make this clip as big as I want or as small as I want. For now, that seems big enough for me. So I double click on it, and it brings up a lot of this stuff is applying to Pro Tools, but it should apply to any other DAW. We're going to program a simple beat. Basically, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, you know. Maybe add a couple beats in there, but let's just keep it super simple for now. Bring up my pencil. I'm just going to put in a note. Doesn't matter where it's at, because I can move it around. Let's go find the snare. I'm using the keypad. And I can push down, up. Okay, there's my toms. There's my flam hit. And there's my snare hit. We're going to find the right there. Now, some DAWs, which I really love, I know Ableton can do this, and I think Logic can do this as well. But they can basically put the names of each instrument over here as a custom MIDI map. And then you can also make it so it only shows those things, and then you don't have to sit there and kind of either A, memorize C0 as your kick drum, or it will just say kick drum on it. Pro Tools, I have not found a thing that can do that yet. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments, send me video links, whatever, because I definitely want to learn if Pro Tools can do that, because I do think that's a downfall when it comes to MIDI editing with Pro Tools. So yeah, so I got my kick. I'm going to hold Alt and bring it over. Okay, there's my... So we got a... That's too slow. Let's make it quicker. That's too fast. There it is. Now I just can do this, and I can hit Control D. Yeah. Let's do 4 of them. So we got... Now, I mean, this was a great example of having different samples for different hits. You notice how the snare was pretty heavy on these first 2 hits, and then on the 3rd hit, it sounded a little bit weaker, like it wasn't as good of a hit. That's because it had a different sample that it pulled that was a little weaker hit, but it still was the same velocity. So, and that's what gives it that human quality. So, right off the bat, I haven't touched any of the velocity yet, and it already sounds like a human played it almost. Like, having a good sample pack makes this go a lot quicker. So, I want to change these velocities anyways. I'm going to bring... Actually, we'll start with the kick first. I want, like, the drummer's fucking wailing on it, right? So, we're going to bring the velocities up. And the snare, the main snare hits, I'm going all the way to the top. Now, let's hear it. You know, we want that drummer to friggin' wail on it. Okay, well, drummers don't just normally do that. They want a hi-hat usually goes with this, right? Here's something I want to show you. I'm going to take this. This is my... Right now, everything's on a instrument track, but what I'm going to do... Control-Shift-N, and then I'm going to create MIDI. I'm going to create 2 of them. Hit create. Okay. One of these is going to be shells. The other one's going to be cymbals. And then I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to bring it down here. And then we got to tell it, well, where do you want to send this to? Well, we want to send it to the RS drums chain. And the same for this guy. No. RF chain. Okay. I'm going to bring this down, but I'm going to delete that. Okay. The reason why I like to separate cymbals from shells is, A, if you have to send this to another person for production, like you're co-producing with somebody, it's a lot easier for that person if the shells and cymbals are separated on different MIDI files for them to figure out, oh, okay, this was a shell, but it was mapped wrong on my drum program. But by listening to the rough or whatever, I can tell, okay, that was supposed to be a tom. And it'll be a lot easier for them to fix the mapping issues that come with sending MIDI drums to another producer or co-writer. And so, yeah, I like to separate the drums and cymbals for that main reason when programming drums. And it's easier for you when you want to go find the cymbal that sounds funky or something. You know what you're hearing is a cymbal. You just go to the MIDI cymbal track and find that sound versus having everything in there and trying to find like all these different notes. So I personally like separating the MIDI from, or the cymbals from the drum shells. Okay, so usually when a drummer comes in, they hit the cymbal, or a crash cymbal, right? So let's go find the crash cymbal. That's a China. We'll go with that one. Now, I'm just going to throw that in. It sounds like they missed it, because it's the velocity's so down, right? So we're going to bring the velocity up. Now it's like they wailed on it coming in. Yeah. Already sounds great. But we're not just going to hit the cymbal and then do that. We're going to come down into probably a hi-hat or a ride cymbal. I'm going to choose a hi-hat. There's a lot to go in, deep diving with the hi-hat and articulations, but for now we're going to keep it simple. So let's go find a hi-hat. Here we go. So this is something I love about RS drums, is it has all the great articulations all lined up for you. Okay, that sound right there, that's their foot stomping on the hi-hat to closing the hi-hat. That's what you're hearing. How do I know that? Experience playing the drums, knowing what those sounds sound like. But that's what that is. So the next one, tip of the stick on top, a little bit more of the stick on the hat, even more, almost no tip, and now we're on the side. And now we're loosening up those hi-hats with your foot, which lets them ring more. And there's different versions of those. So that's what I love about RS drums, is they've got it all lined up right there for you. So first thing I'm going to do, we're just going to put in something simple. Actually, I'm going to do that and then Control D, D, D. Let's listen to that. Okay, there's problems, but it doesn't sound terrible. Most drummers, this is where you have to have a drummer mind or understand how drums work. Most drummers don't sit on the tip and do this. They're going to fluctuate their articulation even on the hi-hat. If I were to play this drum, it would be side stick, tip, side stick, like this. So, what I want to do, because let's try, I'm going to hold shift, and let's just do every other one up to a side hit, and see what that does for us. You hear the difference there? Tip, side, lots of side. Let's try a lot of side, and then we'll just kind of play around here. You hear the difference already? The drummer's fluctuating, right, between those hits. And I haven't even had to touch the velocity yet. This is just how great the sample pack is, right? It's varying between 10 or 13 different takes for each velocity, on top of being different articulation, is already humanizing it up a bit. Okay. Not bad. Let's try it one down. I think I liked it up here. Now, okay, so that's, so you're kind of hearing the accent. I like to call it the accent when you hit the side of the hi-hat, because it's a little bit louder than the tip, right? So I call it the accented hit is actually on the upbeat. Let's see what it sounds like if we move the accented hit on the downbeat. So you can bring this down, and then what I like to do is go one extra for a minute, bring this up, and then it's just easier for selecting things. So now it's on the upbeat. I like that better. It depending on the song, the vibe, and what's happening, either way it works. It just depends on the vibe and the feel that you want the groove to sound, right? So, still haven't touched velocity yet, but we've changed articulations every other hit, how a drummer would hit the hi-hat. Now, because I understand physics and how I play as a drummer, usually I'm hitting one harder than the other. So the light hit's always going to be softer. So I'm going to bring every other one down and see how that feels. And then here's where I think Logic has an option where you can randomize the hits velocities. I'm not sure if I can do that with Pro Tools. Once again, if you guys know how to do that in Pro Tools, send me a comment or a message. I'd love to learn that. I'm not gonna say I'm all knowing here. I'll let you know when I don't know. But for now, I'm just gonna randomize some of these, just a little bit, but keeping them louder than the other hit, right? But they're gonna be randomized in their velocity. Now we're messing with velocity, humanizing it a little bit more. Let's do a bark at the end just to end the beat, the groove. I want a little bit of stick in that, and then our foot to close it out. Let's hear what that sounds like. Sounds great. Overall, you could get away with just this, right? To go further with humanizing these drums now. I don't know too many drummers that are perfectly on time with the hi-hat groove. Kick and snare can vary too, because if you think about it, some of these hits are with the kick, some of these hits are with the snare. To have your foot and your hand hit the drum at the same time, very, very hard to do, even with some of the best drummers. There's going to be some timing variances with that. The cymbal being hit with the kick drum, there's going to be timing variances with that. And so, cymbals are usually hardly ever in sync with your feet, if that makes sense. Your hands are never perfectly in sync. You can get them dang close, but they're not perfectly in sync. And so what I like to do, once I get all the cymbals programmed, I like to select them all like this, and then I want to say it's Alt 0? Yeah, Alt 0 on Pro Tools. Brings up a quantized little dealio. And I'm pretty sure these are eighth notes. Yes. And you can swing them, which means pulls them back or forward on the beat. All of them, just a certain amount, to kind of give it looser timing. What I like to do is I like to do randomize. Sometimes the hi-hat's ahead of the beat, sometimes the hi-hat's behind the beat, or sometimes it might be almost on it. But what randomize can do, you don't want to go crazy with it. Let's say 13%. Let's try 13%. Just very little. I'm going to zoom in on our hit here. I'm like super zoomed in. I'm going to hit apply. Look at that. It moved our hit ahead of the beat. But if you zoom out, it looks like they're still on. But when you look deeper, they're a little bit off now, which is totally fine, because that's how humans play, right? Humans are not perfectly in time. Sorry. I'm trying to get to that hi-hats. Yeah, so this one's behind. Let's take a look at this one. Now this one's a little bit ahead, but just a little bit. We're talking like 1 millisecond, maybe 2 milliseconds. I don't know. But there's some timing there now. So let's listen. You can't tell that it's offbeat, but they're not hitting with the shells anymore. They've got their own vibe to it. You can't get any more human than this. Cool. Let's take it deeper. Let's add in ghost notes. You know, how do we do that, right? What if we want the drummer to kind of groove with it, not just be a robot? Maybe add in a few kick drums, right? Let me show you some stuff here. There we go. Okay, here's our kick. Boom, chick, boom, chick. Let's add in. Let's have some fun with it. Boom, chick, boom. Let's put in a catcher. Boom, 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 boom. You know, I'm just hearing it in my head. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, let's put in another one right there. Boom, chick, boom, boom, chick, boom. And let's see what it sounds like with the kick on that bark. I like it by itself. Now, we've got some kicks here. More kick variation. The kick drum, or your foot as a drummer, is not going to hit that kick drum the same every time when it comes to the intensity, the velocity. Especially when there's two kicks right next to each other. I'm going to say this one right before the snare, it's going to come down. These ones definitely right here, boom, boom, kick. The first kick is always going to be a little bit less intense than the second kick. So it's going boom, boom. Or you could do it the other way, boom, boom. Usually, the first hit is down, like so. Let's hear how that sounds. I'm going to bring this one down too. Okay. What if we went boom, boom, boom? Ooh, that's kind of cool. I don't like it still. So now, maybe I went a little too far with the velocity. Let's listen one more time. Just a little bit. We can bring this one up just a little bit. But I still want that variance there. Perfect. Yeah, let's add in some ghost notes now. How would I ghost note this? So here's where I'm starting to think like a drummer, right? How would I play this? So because the kick drum's a little busy, we might have to switch between the kick drum and the snare. So let me hear this. This I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Well, I do, but I mean, I'm just writing this as we go, right? So let's see. So first things first, we're gonna go down to our non rim shot snare. Ghost notes are never on a rim shot, never. So you're gonna want to use your articulation where there's no rim shot. Some drum programs are velocity based on that rim shot. So, I don't want any rim shot. As you bring the velocity down, the rim shot goes away. And when you get the velocity higher, the rim shot starts to come in. It just depends on the program. This particular one, they got rim shot samples on one key and non-rim shot samples on another key. So you got to learn how to kind of intertwine the two together. All right, let's see here. So listen to this. Okay, we're never going to hit full velocity for ghost notes. But the cool thing about Pro Tools, and I'm sure a lot of others are the same, you can hear the snare. We're going to start around 35, 36, see what that. Okay, we're going to take that one out and this one out. So, okay, we're getting somewhere. I'm going to bring these up just a little bit. And then, when there's ghost notes, that's always going to be this action between your right hand and your left hand for the most part. Not always, but for the most part, it's between the hi-hat. I know that the hi-hats are all on downbeats, so the ghost notes are going to be on the opposites of those beats. So I can do something like this, and just kind of copy it over for a minute and just kind of see how this sounds. Okay, I don't like all of it, so let's see. I'm going to take out that one. And then I'm going to take out, I'm not going to take them out, but I'm going to mute them. So I just go, in Pro Tools, I can just go Control M. So it's still there, but it's just muted, so. Closer. Now we got to vary those velocities big time. When it comes to ghost notes, it's very velocity sensitive to get it right, to make it sound like a human's playing it. I do know if I'm going boom, chick, got the first hit there, first snare hit is going to be lighter than the second one. So it's like because you're anticipating hitting the snare harder, so you start to hit a little bit harder. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring those down. This is going to be like just a little bit of a hiccup, so it's going to be a little bit lighter hit. And then same thing with this one. We're going to bring that one down. Let's hear this. Not bad. That's one version of ghost notes, right? Let me see here. You could go like this and then bring this one back. That's why I didn't delete it. Let's hear this. Yeah, very popular. It's a very popular one. Like the first two hits, here it goes. It's a very popular move. And then we can bring that in. Same thing. Let's move these over and bring this kick back in. And let's go ahead and add in some ghost notes here. Let's hear this. Yeah, there's another version. So there's different versions, but when it comes to ghost notes on the snare, those ghost notes are playing in openings of the beat. You're not flamming them or having them hit on the same timing as like the kicks or snare or hi-hats. They're in between beats. It's a polyrhythm. Yeah, that's what makes ghost notes heard. It's what makes them fill in the gaps of the groove, so to speak. We could probably put one here and here. What if we... It's really quiet, and we want it to be quiet. We don't want it to be loud, but let's just bring it up a little bit and see what happens. All of them. Cool. Pretty cool beat. I like it, actually. But like I said, these two hits, there's no cymbals playing here. Well, there's a cymbal with the hi-hat right here on these notes. Now, we're going a step further. The main kick and snare, boom, chick, are always going to be perfectly, we want those to be pretty damn close. I'm not going to mess with the timing on those because I always want my main kick and snares to be pretty much on the grid. When I'm editing live drummers, I at least make the main kick and snare on the grid, and then all the other looseness is in the ghost notes and the hi-hats and the cymbals. So yeah, so I always quantize the kick and snare to the grid, and then everything else can be loose, and it still sounds like a human played the drums. So with that being said, let's select our snares. We're going to Alt-0. We're going to randomize those 13. The first thing I want to do, though, because if you have a note overlap another note that's sustained, sometimes it mistriggers. So what I like to do is I like to change my grid to 30-second notes. No? Maybe that's the wrong grid. This grid right here. Yeah, sometimes it's confusing. Okay, we're in 8th. Now we're in 16th. They're all selected, so if I just bring it over, now they're all a 16th note here. Then I'll go back to 8th. And then we're going to do our Alt 0, and we're going to randomize. It's already set to 13%, and we're going to hit Apply. You could see them roughly move. Okay, our fully humanized drum beat right here. Boom. Pretty cool. Damn good drummer playing this right now. But it sounds like a real drummer's playing it, right? That's how I approach drum beats. Let's say we want to add a drum fill at the end of this. So let's just duplicate this. Actually, the best way to do this. Oh yeah, I was right. Control D. Okay. We've got that. We need to do that to our cymbals. I can just do that at the clip level here. Boom. Let's bring this over. You notice that cymbal went away because when you move a clip to the grid, anything that's being hit before that grid point will get cut off. So because we did the randomize on that cymbal, I just have to pull it back. I think that's where that needs to be. Let's find out. Nope, it needs to come right there. All right. This is why I like to randomize after I get the whole drum beat done, because of what I'm dealing with right here. You don't really want to have to sit there and deal with cymbals like that. I'm with the pole. Okay, see how... Okay, that's the issue. So what I'm just going to do... Let's go like that. We're going to bring up our Midi. Let's do 2 cymbals. And when 2 cymbals hit, like I said, the drummer isn't perfect, right? One of those cymbals are going to be slightly flammed when the drummer hits 2 cymbals at the same time. So make sure to always flam your crash hits. And your kick and cymbals aren't always going to be on the grid either, but that's where that randomize comes in. But I'm just going to scoot that just a little bit. Okay, let's listen to that. All right, now the first thing I got to do is I got to listen to it and figure out where I'm going to start the drum fill. Okay, we're just going to do that. And then the last hit will be a cymbal hit. So let's go ahead and add that in. We want to be back in grid mode. Sure. Let's see here. So go back. Okay, so I've got the space for it. Cymbals are going to stop once the drum fill starts. So I'm going to delete the cymbals and give me space for that drum fill. Okay, let's go into the kick. or the shells, and let's find out where that's at. Booga, booga, ba-da-ba-dibba. I'm gonna delete all those. Okay, let's get the main hits in there. Booga, ba-da-ba-dibba. Boom. Booga, booga-da-da-da. Booga, booga-da-da-da. Let's go find our toms. Let's see. So first thing I gotta figure out. So here's your beat, right? Quarter notes are on the beat. Bop, 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 bop. Eighth notes are are double that. Bop, 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 bop. And then 16. Da 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 da. So pretty fast. Da 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 da. Booga ba da ba da ba. So there's gonna be some 16th notes in that, right? So this is like where the thinking of a drummer comes in, right? Booga ba da ba da ba. Boo ba ba da ba da ba. I bet you that kick goes there. Booga boo ba 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 ba. Bop. Boop. 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 Let's hear how that sounds. Too fast. I was wrong. All right. That's okay. As long as we can hear that it's wrong. That's the important part. So that's actually got to be like this. Boom. Got. Boo. Got. Where's the last hit? Right here. Boom. Got. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. Boom. Boom. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Interesting, okay. And we need a kick at the end. Let's listen to this, see if it's what my brain was telling me. I was singing it, boo-ga, ba-da-ba-doo-boo. That's it. Now, I would probably add in some ghost notes in there. Let's make this for this hit a flam. Here's where that flam comes in. It's a pretty hard flam, so I'm bringing that velocity down to match the velocity of everything else. Yeah. You know, how would I play that as a drummer, right? If you're not a drummer, you just gotta use your ear as best you can. It's so hard to explain drums when you're talking to someone who doesn't know how to play drums, but hopefully a lot of this is just kind of kicking in. Okay, let's say you don't have a flam sample like me. You're not as lucky as me. So that's fine. We can make one. bring a snare hit in. I'm going to be in slip mode, meaning I'm not connected to the grid here. Right here, slip mode. This is the edit window. The other one was my MIDI window. That's why there's two separates there. Anyways, going in. When a flam hits, the first hit's a little bit lighter than the last one. The last one's always going to be their hardest hit. Flap! But the first one's also not going to be a rim shot, and the last one will. So, depending on how yours work, you might have to do it on the same track. Like something like this. I'm going to make these shorter so I have more room to work with here. So, what I'm going to do... Actually, sometimes this works like this. Let's hear that. Yep. So you hear that? Let's bring down that first hit, like I said. And hear how that sounds. A little close. Let's bring it farther out. There we go. I'm going to select those. And the first or the last hit's perfectly on the beat. That's usually never the case either. We like to balance between the two. Let's try somewhere in there. Actually, almost might sound better than the flam that I had sampled. Let's find out. Not bad, not bad. Let's bring down this guy. Cool. Let's mute those and bring back the other one. Let's hear that. Sixes. I think they both sound cool. But for now, this is probably how most people do it. Now, because I have those two different articulations, I can take this and bring it down to this one. And then maybe bring up the velocity a little bit to compensate. Which sounds great. So yeah, that's basically what a flam looks like. The right stick hits not perfectly as a rim shot, and then the last one hits harder. Flap, flap. And that's kind of how it goes. And this is how I would handle the toms too if I wanted the toms to flam, which this drum fill, there's no humanly way for the drummer to flam unless you took out a hit or something. Like, actually, let's try this. Let's try something. Let's try it. Bring the kick in, and the last flam hit, tom hit, will be a flam. We're going to do the same thing. Bring down the first hit, find out a good timing, bring the timing variation, and let's hear that. Yeah, still, it's too quick of a drum fill for that to really work. But you could do something like that. The reason why I took that one tom hit off, because the drummer's already doing this. Boom, boom, like that. So to go boom, 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 is physically not, it's just not real. Not, we want these to sound real. So if you took timing away from the hands and moved it to the foot, that gives the drummer time to get his hands over to do a flip. So it would be bop, boom, kick, flum. That's more realistic. Bop, boom, kick, flum. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was creating there. Instead of bop, boom, boom, it's just, you got to think physics here and realistic when you're programming these drums. So I'm going to bring this back up to that tom. I didn't mess with the the velocity of the tom or the snares. And the reason why I can get away with that is good samples. The fact that each hit has different samples with those hits, it sounds pretty natural to me. I'm not going to mess with them. I want the toms to be hit as hard as possible on a drum beat. So our fully humanized drums with even a drum fill. Let's take a listen. Not bad. I'm gonna go to the cymbals. This is becoming a lot longer than I expected. There's just so much to go into. But I'm gonna go into the cymbals here. I'm gonna get rid of our 2 hits here because we have this hi-hat bark, and I think it would sound cool to just keep the beat going, but with the hi-hat bark in there. And the reason why I can get away with not having the foot here is no matter what, when you do a loose hi-hat to another articulation, it cancels out the last articulation. So it sounds like the foot went down anyway. So take a listen. See? So yeah, I'm just gonna take out that and let's listen to the beat one more last time. Sounds great. And that, my friends, is a real crash course on programming drums and making them sound like a human's playing them. Let me know if this helps anybody. I was going to go into programming for an actual song that's in this session, but this video's gone too long already, and I feel like this is a lot to take in, especially if you're new at this process. That I think I should separate the two anyways. So yeah, here's this. Let me know what you guys think. Bye.